Hi everyone, and welcome back to the QVM monthly marketing planning series. Today again we have Peter Topping, who is our digital marketing expert, online IT, works in the travel industry, so is very much in the know. And today we're going to continue with our digital marketing tasks, tricks, tips and activities to help traders develop and enhance their digital footprints in 2022. And we're looking again at secondary brand leverage, getting more out of QVM, and this will be during March. We'll have some homework for you at the end of the program, and we hope you are enjoying the series, and we welcome any feedback that you may provide. Okay, so Peter, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thanks, Madalen, and thank you to obviously SBMS and QVM for giving me the opportunity to do this series. It's always good for me because it helps me to consolidate my knowledge and also to think about putting into practice things in a more logical and structured manner. So I always do enjoy it, and also thanks to Madalen for actually giving me some really good feedback on the presentation this week, which I think has made it much better. So where we're up to? We're up to brand leverage, and we're up to March already. So when we look at this, it's already the last quarter. March is nearly, 2022 is nearly a quarter over. I know that's a terrifying thing to say, but it's whizzing by. And in March we've got Melbourne Fashion Week, we've got the long weekend, we've got the night market, we've got the Turkish festival, we've got various other things that are on during this particular month. Offices are back and the classroom is back. So there is a lot happening, and the landscape is a lot more different than it was, say, for example, 4 or 6 weeks ago. The other thing is that Flight Centre have cut a deal with 7 universities in Queensland, and they're chartering planes to bring in international students for those 7 universities. That will be a success. Some of my former colleagues are working on that project, and the 7 universities in Victoria will probably follow suit. So if the students are arriving, then have you done any preparation for that? Does it affect your business? Where you need to get your mind into thinking about those opportunities. This is a brand new group of people or a returning group of people. But it's finally looks like it's beginning to happen after 2 years of saying the students are about to arrive, the international students are about to arrive. So keep that in mind. There's a whole new market imminently about to arrive, which is fantastic for us. And do some planning around that. So in the last meeting, I asked you to close off Christmas. And what I said by that was pause any AdWords, pause any campaigns that you've got. Make sure you go through and look at your collections and all your categories in WooCommerce and Shopify, and make sure that you've either unpublished them or you've used the tag manager to make sure that they're no longer the key result or page in your Google search. And if you're going to edit your Christmas pages, put on something about 2022, put Christmas 2022 in the meta description, and put a diary date in to do something about it, bringing the pages back in September 2022, which gives you 12 to 16 weeks in terms of the lead time for SEO before Christmas. So I don't know how many of you did that, but that was the homework for last week. The other thing I asked you to do was read the Trader Bulletin. And one of the bits of homeworks we talked about was the fact that there's lots of good content in the Trader Bulletin, and you can republish it and you can reuse it. In particular, the photographs, which you don't need copyright to republish if you're a store holder. And the reason I wanted you to look at the images is because this week I want to talk about hashtags, and people's knowledge about hashtags and how they work and things like that it's a little bit patchy. And even if you don't use hashtags as a business leader, it's worth knowing how they work, because other people who work for you or in your organization will use hashtags, and hashtags aren't necessarily going away. So when we when we talk about the Trader Bulletin, and what's in it this week, we've got, like I said, the Turkish Bazaar, the Summer Night Festival. We've got Easter at QVM. There's a huge amount of content in the Trader Bulletin that we can use to create social media communications and also to plan some of our campaigns around or to build product collections around. And it's just really about trying to get yourself in alignment with what's actually in the bulletin. Now, the two things that stood out for me in the bulletin was they're doing another cooperative marketing program, which means you get a chance to engage in some marketing and get some cooperative funding for. So there's not necessarily a reason why you wouldn't do that if it's free money. And the other thing they were looking for was content to include in their brochures. And you can, if you look at the screen that's up there, that's the left-hand side, the tourism update. So they're looking really to put together a folder or a brochure for inbound students. And in order to do that, you really need to be able to present them with a ready-made solution, a good choice of images, a good mixture of product, something about you and the business that's engaging for international students. And they're generally looking for something homely or something authentic when they're coming here. So your first point of planning for your social media was to really look in the Trader Bulletin and have a look and see what you could align yourself with. The reason that hashtags are important, and I'm going to talk about them, is that before about 2 or 3 years ago, Google couldn't read pictures and it couldn't see pictures. So what happens is it relied on other information to know that there was a picture in the page. And that meant it looked at the file type and it said, this is a JPEG, this is a PNG, which means it's an image. And then it looked at the alt tag. And for the couple of years that I've been involved in SBS and QVM, Madalen has been pushing and pushing and pushing traders in particular to tag up all the images on their site properly, because they've got visual merchandising and they've got products so that Google can read and make best use of their content for SEO. Gradually over time, Google is teaching through AI its computers to recognize images. So every time you do a CAPTCHA or a quiz online on Facebook, it's usually someone training AI to say, what does a school bus look like? And you go through and you click all the images, or click on all the images of cake, and you click on all the images of cake and partial cake and cake from different angles. And there, thousands of people are solving these puzzles every day, and they're using those puzzles to train AI. That's why they're getting better and better at looking at pictures. In the meantime, what they put together was hashtags. And hashtags were a solution to tell people and to communicate with people about what the topic or image was in a fast-moving conversation or in a high graphic situation. All the people involved in IT hated hashtags because they were unstructured. People could make them up. They didn't make a contribution to SEO. They were out of control, right? And no one thought they were going to last. And yet here we are 10 years later after they started, and hashtags are more established than ever, and all their weaknesses are actually their strengths. So the short-term solution has become the long-term solution, and it's not necessarily going away. You will have hashtags that are to do with your business, and if you dig into any of your posts and your competitors' posts, you can start to find out what some of those hashtags are. So hashtags fill the gap between a structured page and SEO and instant communication. So they're quite useful. Obviously, you can't run Instagram with any success or without hashtags, so it's worth getting into. Why is it important? The traders at the Queen Vic market sit under a series of massive pyramids of terms of marketing, and huge amounts of money are being spent. And if the traders can get themselves in alignment with those activities, they've got the greatest chance of success. So at the top of that, we've got Tourism Australia, and they're spending lots of money trying to bring people to Australia, and they're using specific hashtags and they're using specific tourism terms. Underneath that, we've got Tourism Vic, and Tourism Vic is trying to get people to visit Victoria, both internally and externally, and they're using a lot of hashtags, and they're also spending a lot of money. Underneath that, we've got the City of Melbourne, who are again using a whole series of hashtags and a whole series of statements and marketing statements, and spending a whole lot of money and doing a whole lot of research to try and get people to use the facilities in Melbourne, come to Melbourne, maximise their Melbourne experience. And underneath that, we've got the Queen Victoria market. and they've paid for their own research, and they've got their own marketing companies, and they're using their own hashtags. So lots and lots and lots of hard work has been done for you, and lots of money has been spent. What I want you to do is bring your business in alignment with that to try and benefit with some of those spends. So if your clients are mainly tourists, you should be using the Visit Victoria hashtag. If you're food, you should be using the Melbourne Foodies hashtag when you post. If it's about fashion, then you should be using the Melbourne Fashion Capital hashtags, because those have been identified as key parts of the Melbourne tourism experience. And Tourism Australia, Tourism Vic, the City of Melbourne and QVM are all marketing them. So getting yourself in alignment with those and appearing in those streams is the easy and simple way to do that. And also, you pay for it. It's your tax dollars at work, so you may as well get something out of it by making sure that what you do is in alignment with what they do. So hashtags do have a role to play. I'm only going to look at 3 of the things that we can look at. I mean, obviously there was Easter at the Vic Market. There was the Turkish festival. I'm really just going to look at Fashion Week, the long weekend, and one other, which is now, of course, escaping me down doing the presentation. I'm just going to look at how to find hashtags on 3 particular items, right? So if we look at Melbourne Fashion Week, what you want to do is you want to link yourself to Melbourne Fashion Week. And even if you're a barber, like the Road Barber on Victoria Street, or a hairdresser in and around the market, you can just say something simple like post a great picture from of fashion and say, you've got the outfit, is it time to get the haircut? Or bronze highlights, is this, how's your hair looking? Click in, make an appointment, it's Fashion Week. There's ways in which you can relate your content to the great images that have been manufactured. And the way to make those images go further is to use the right set of hashtags. So finding hashtags is incredibly easy, okay? What you do is you go to Instagram and you look at what other people are doing and you copy. Or you type into Google Melbourne Fashion Week hashtags, and then you look at the results. The other key challenge is, when do I use them? You can use them pretty much everywhere. Okay, you use hashtags on Instagram. You can use hashtags on blog posts. You can use hashtags attached to images that you've published on the web. You can use hashtags on Facebook. You can use hashtags on Pinterest. You can use hashtags on lots of social media platforms. They work best when you hyperlink them. So if you have a blog post and it's hashtag Melbourne Fashion Week, if you then link that back to something on your site, which also says Melbourne Fashion Week, from an SEO point of view, it'll work better. Okay, so use a hashtag, hyperlink it is better. Okay, and finding them is really pretty simple. So when you think about a hashtag strategy as a digital marketer, what you'll want to do is fulfill a couple of categories, right? And the first category we want to fulfill is the location. Okay, so we're going to talk about, say, something like Melbourne Fashion Week. Our location is QVM. Okay, so where is the activity we're talking about, and where is our business? Our business is at QVM. Everything we can do to help QVM is going to help us indirectly and directly, right? So QVM has a destination strategy. They want QVM to be a destination, and they also want QVM to be a place where people solve the problems that they want. Where do I get a cake? How do I find kosher sausages? How can I buy flowers? Where are Ugg boots? That's a problem solution marketing. But their other major strategy is QVM as a destination, right? So whenever we post a hashtag or we post something on social media, it is worth putting in a hashtag about our destination, because we want people to come to the market. And there is a couple of hashtags for QVM. Obviously, there is just hashtag QVM. I looked up the stream of hashtags that come down there, and the popular hashtags, obviously 2021 still has a lot of resonance, but we'd put 2022. Shop sustainably, Melbourne Market, Eat Street, and then you can see a couple that have sneaked in from Sydney, like Petersham, Melbourne Shopping, Taste the Six, and the Melburnian, right? So they are the other associated hashtags that go with QVM that you can choose to use or not use, right? If you search for a hashtag based on the whole word, Queen Victoria Market, then you get a different set of responses. And you can see there, Melbourne cafes, visit Melbourne, Melbourne sites, Melbourne moment, City of Melbourne. You can see it's more tourist focused. So if you're looking at hashtags to do with our destination and you want to put a couple in, QVM and Queen Vic Market are the obvious ones, but then you can see what goes with that. And obviously, if you're after the tourism market, then we might choose things like Melbourne sites or explore Melbourne, for our particular for our particular product. If you know that your product is generally found in farmers markets, you might choose Melbourne markets, right, as your as where you want to go. There's all the hashtags are listed on sites and they're all free. And Madalen actually came up with a couple of really good ones, tophashtags.com and best hashtags. All you do is you go there, you type in what you were looking for, and both of them will give you a list of hashtags that you can peruse and choose, right? Most of them have got a copy function. Watch out, because a lot of it often mixed in there is junk that's not really required for us, like Petersham and Taste the Big Six or My Adelaide. So be a little bit judicious. Don't just cut and paste everything in from the results. So if I typed in Fashion Week, what you can see is I looked at two hashtags, Melbourne Fashion Week and MFW as tags, and it gave us some quite good results. It tells us what the most popular hashtags are around fashion: emerging fashion, independent fashion, London fashion photographer, Gold Coast fashion, Fashion Week, etc. So some of them were good and some of them were rubbish, but they told you what the fastest growing and most popular hashtags were on TikTok and Instagram at the moment. Further down the page, in the number 2 result, was a lot more interesting information. And there we saw things like Fashion Week, fashion designer, Melbourne Fashion Week, Australian fashion designers, different tags like that. So again, if your product is associated with any of those tags, you can use it, right? And if you're just generally putting out content to encourage people to come to the market, then you can tag that up with QVM and Melbourne Fashion Week. It's a great weekend to visit the market. If your product isn't aligned with that, it doesn't necessarily matter. You're communicating with your customers on Facebook about something that they may share a value with. You're communicating with them on Instagram. You're communicating with other social media. It's just a good reason to put some content out there and have that discipline of putting content out there. But it was relatively easy. One of the things I did learn when I looked at MFW was it also stands for Milan Fashion Week and another country's Fashion Week. So it wasn't so specific for Melbourne, and you could end up with a stream of content that's not necessarily where you want to be because you're not in Milan. So some people had used MFW, but Melbourne Fashion Week was much more effective, and it had some other great pieces of content around it. And again,
Peter, I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you use your own company name as a hashtag?
Marketing people would say probably yes, right? But I would argue that your brands aren't big enough in the market, right? And you've got to be then careful about quoting the names of other brands, because you've got to like Adidas or something, because there's copyright infringement issues. So if you think that your store, like there's certain people in the market who are really well known, like Books for Cooks, that's a brand, that's quite well known among foodies in Melbourne. But generally, what we're talking about here is how do I use the QVM content to generate social media content and to communicate with my clients. So give it a go. Why not? Right? You've got absolutely nothing to lose.
I guess one of the things as far as like souvenirs, like you could put Australian souvenirs, or you could put, but you don't have to put in the whole business name.
No, it's not. It's not really required, because generally when people are looking at something that's hashtagged up, they're already at your content, right? So it's like saying Madalen Ross, right?
Yeah.
They're already at Madalen Ross's page and they know they are. So do you need to use a hashtag, right? So I don't, you can do it, but I don't think there's a validity. A lot of people do it. I just don't see if you're not Flight Centre or Big W or McDonald's or whatever, then are you just wasting the space that's going up the hashtag? I'd be much more interested in a discipline, which is, what's my destination tag? My destination tag is QVM because I like that one. What's my what's going on that I think will get me some traction? I think I'm going to put in there MFW because that doesn't take up much space, and then I'm going to put in some other tags that we'll talk about. We'll talk about next, right? That relate to my particular company and or product. So it just depends on what you're trying to achieve with a post. But I don't think there's a lot of room for brand names at the moment, in my opinion. Just to go through, the other one that I couldn't think of at the time was the night market, right? Night market was a bit of a troublesome hashtag when I looked at it, and so was Queen Vic. So they sort of work. The reason why night market is troublesome is most of the content is in Asia, right? So it's Phuket night market, Mongkok night market, Bali night market, etc., etc. That's not necessarily a bad thing because the night market vibe that we're trying to create is very much an Asia vibe. Okay, so if you're a food store and you put in night market and you put in Melbourne foodies and you put in Taste the Big Six and you put in QVM, that's all fine, right? You're exactly in the right space because you're looking for people who are interested in that experience. There's a massive Asian community in the inner city, and you've put the destination in, you've put the event in, and you've tied it up with people who've got an interest in food. So night market is a good hashtag as long as the other hashtags around it qualify it. Queen Vic, I was quite surprised to find out, actually, I would have used Queen Vic because that's how I think of it, but it actually takes you mainly to a theatre in London. So don't, do a bit of thinking before you just randomly use a hashtag. It's a massive theatre. There's loads of awards associated within London, and it was news for me. So Queen Victoria Market and QVM were much more effective than Queen Vic because of where your content might end up. So I did find within those sort of groups some really interesting other hashtags such as Taste of Melbourne, Melbourne Food Scene, Broadsheet Melbourne, Top Food for Melbourne. So in terms of the night market, there's a whole series of absolutely fantastic food related hashtags that you can put with the word QVM and with the night market that will help you leverage your product. And even if you're not a food destination, you're just trading that night, there's no shame or lack of strategy in putting in QVM, putting in night market and mentioning all the foodies because they're the people we're trying to sell to. So it's just about, again, aligning yourself with the event, regardless of whether that's your genre of business or not. If you don't like any of the pictures in the trader bulletin, you can go and find your own. Just make sure they're royalty free and they're allowed to be used. They're allowed to be used by third parties. I went to Upsplash, which is again, the RMIT project and SBMS and QVM have tried to get people to use Upsplash and a number of other free sources that are available for images. And I found a great picture of the night market. And you can see there's a bit of text here that I've copied in. That's not an error. I've put it in there on purpose, right? Because you're supposed to put this in the HTML of your website or your blog. If you can't put it in, you don't have the skills, right? What you need to copy out is Mitchell Lau's name and Upsplash as the source and give them a credit, right? So when you post or blog about it, along with your hashtags, you just need to say photo by Mitchell Lau on Upsplash. Give them a credit somewhere on the page, okay? They're giving you something for free, which is the right to use their image, and what they ask for is that you credit the source of that particular image. But Madalen, you've got a whole list of basically places where you can get free images, haven't you?
Yeah, that's the next slide.
Right, okay. I'd forgotten about that. There you go. Commercial free image sources. So look through these and find a picture of the Melbourne night market. It's really, really well photographed, or find another night market that's appropriate to what you're looking for. And again, the free image sources of products and things to do with your business, if you don't have a great catalogue of images, look at some free ones and just be a little bit careful and make sure that you comply with the rules. They're pretty simple.
Yeah, so just make sure you check the licenses, even though they all say commercial free. That means that you can use it anywhere in print and on digital. And also, now these were listed a while ago, so some of these may not be alive now. So, you know, the links are there with good intention.
Yeah. So it's about creating content. But once you've got the content, then it's about using it properly. And the way to use an image properly, apart from to post it on your social media sources and in any blogs and any Facebook posts, in Instagram, etc., is to tag it up properly. And what I'm talking about today is just tagging it up properly. So that's really where we are. So Melbourne Fashion Week, like I said, we've got a couple of tags that we've seen to do with Melbourne Fashion Week. We've got a couple of tags that we've seen to do with the destination, which is Queen Vic Market. Then we've got this other one, which is Long Weekend. The Long Weekend is more challenging because it's much more of a global tag. And when I looked at tags around Long Weekend, you can see the list there. I don't have to read them out. Holiday at home, mini holiday, weekend off, etc. You just got to choose the one that you think is going to work best for you, and then tag it up with the other things that will support it. So QVM, Visit Melbourne, My Melbourne, Long Weekend. If you just want to put up a more generic picture of the market and encourage your customers to come, you're basically saying have a holiday at home. Come to the market, come and visit us, and you're looking in the stream of people who are looking at Long Weekend or holiday as an activity. So it's an excuse to communicate with your client and also to leverage the work that's already being done by the City of Melbourne, who are trying to get people into the city, and QVM, who are trying to say, come to our destination. So that's how you can fit it in terms of hashtagging. If you've got a destination and you've got a activity or a product, right? The last kind of hashtag you need in your suite is a demographic or business type of hashtag. And if you talk to a digital marketer, they'll say, okay, let's have a look at your hashtag, and they'll go, yep, okay, you've got a destination, you've got an activity type, you've got a product in there, and now lastly, have you got a group of people that you want to communicate with? Okay, is there someone who we can narrow down, who we particularly want to have in? So all you do is type into the hashtag generator either things about your business type and or things about who your customers are, right? So I looked at mums and I looked at kids, and these were the popular hashtags that came out. Autumn kids, Australian kids, Aussie handmade, Aussie mum. I don't know what IG_motherhood is, but obviously if you're in a business which you want to attract mums, then these are the kind of hashtags that you've got to have. If you're Pebble and Pocket, then you might want to use Aussie kids, right? Or Aussie mum or Melbourne kids. So you've got your at QVM, you've got that it's Long Weekend, you've got a product tag, and then you put in who you're after. Yep. Where is it? What's the event or motivation? Is there a product? Who do I want to come? Right? And that's the kind of basics for organizing your hashtags. And then you can put in as many as you like to the point where you think it looks stupid or overcrowded, right? Depending on your presentation and you're confident. I mean, we all see lots of people, especially young people, who put in 10 lines of hashtags. It's ridiculous.
On Instagram, you can put up to 30 hashtags.
Yeah.
On Facebook, you really don't want to put in that many. Probably maybe up to 10 as a general thumb.
And the reason is that it looks like spamming.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone under 25 won't even see them, right? Because they're just used to it. They just think, oh yeah, whatever, right? Anyone else will look at it and go, oh, it looks like spamming. So it's about presentation, about focus and about balance. I always say get nichey because you're small businesses, and then get really, really nichey again. But I want you to have a minimum of 4. 1 is the market. Okay. 2 is what event or activity are we going around. 3 is the demographic, and 4, try and find a way to limit it to your product, right? If what you're doing doesn't necessarily relate specifically to your business, that's absolutely fine. You're just producing content and trying to get people to come to the market. Because one of the big complaints that you hear from the traders is about foot traffic, right? Well, we can all do something about that. We can all do 1/10%. If we all did one tiny little bit of work towards that, it would have a cumulative effect. And that's within our power, to help the business. So my last thing on this, just for now, is that when you start to look at hashtags, and I started to look at jewelry because I've been working with TAM jewelry, it can get overwhelming and really big. I put in jewelry, and then it said to me, there are 77.79 million possible hashtags. And I thought, I'm not going to open that page because it's too much content. But what that's telling me is get more specific. Don't try and just put in jewelry. It's too general, right? You're a small business, get specific. Is it custom jewelry? Is it vintage jewelry? Is it handcrafted jewelry? What am I really trying to say? Right? So if I go to TAM jewelry, I need to do more. What it taught me is, okay, so when I do my next session with TAM jewelry, I need to think a bit more. I need to say, okay, jewelry's not really where we're at because there's 77.9 million possible combinations, which means that, we're going to be hugely up against the big guys. So how do we get cut through? We find the specific hashtags that relate to her product, right? So if you don't get lost in the detail, if it says there's 80 million results, right, it means you've got to try and get more specific. So that was basically a little bit about hashtags and how they work, and I hope that that's helpful. I might just stop for a second and ask, is there any other questions about hashtags?
You're welcome to unmute yourselves. Okay, so it doesn't appear to be any more questions, Peter.
Okay, that's good. You can always email me. Okay, so the other thing I think that we did the first session in February, and then Madalen and I were talking about that. Madalen had some feedback, and the feedback was that during that particular session, I talked about reviewing your QVM listing, and also talked about your My Business listing, and I whizzed through it and said, do this, do that, go and change this. Have you checked it up? And actually, one of the bits of feedback was, I mentioned some people who thought had done a good job, but I didn't say why the job was good. Okay, so that's a bit of an oversight on my part. And so I'm going to come back to looking at a couple of accounts and explain to you why I think those people have done a good job, so that you can make sure that yours is of an equal standard. So the reason why you should do this is that the QVM listing is free and it indexes really well in Google. So it shows up really well in Google. And so it's like a free boost to your position. Same with Google My Business. It gives you half the screen on an iPad and the whole screen on a phone. And it's just about you. So if you use it well, they're really, really great tools, and they're free, right? And we like things that are free. So I'm just going to cover Google My Business first, and I'm going to look at one example. I'm not going to try and bring it up live because it's problematic depending on what device you're using, and you don't always get the same result twice, right? So I've actually gone and screenshotted the results from my phone. Okay, and the one I wanted to look at was Bill's Farm, because I think from my point of view, they do a gold standard job, right? If you're doing a job nearly as good as theirs, then you're doing your absolute best and you're giving it your best shot. So when you bring up Bill's Farm on your phone, and it comes up as a Google My Business result, the reason I like this is that it's almost impossible, again, not to find Bill's Farm. Okay, we start at the top. Obviously, it's got great reviews. When I did it, it was at night, so it was closed. He tells you it's got 51 images. That indicates to the customer that he's really confident, or she's really confident, right? They've got 51 images. You don't need to check. If they've got one image or two images, that says, oh, they haven't really put too much in there. We've got phone, we've got website, we can save it, etc. Just a bit of my management there. They've also pointed out they do in-store delivery and pickup, and their address is really clear. Okay, and they're located in the food court. When does it open next? You can call them. Yeah, they've got all the basically who, what, where covered. Okay, and they've got great Google results. The only way to get great Google reviews is to either have fantastic clients who are young and who go on there and give you reviews, or to ask the customers to give you one. And don't be shy about asking for a Google review. I say it to people all the time, ask. People can say no, but that's absolutely fine, and they might not have the confidence to do that. But the more you can get, the better it will work for you. And especially if your demographic isn't your Google review type demographic. The people who are unlikely to do it. So that's on the first screen. If you scroll down, what comes up next is Bill's website. And because Bill's website is really well engineered and the presentation and the back end of the website is really well thought out, it comes up really well on a phone. So the first result is Bill's farm. This description here is both on page and in his meta tag. So he's controlled what Google is presenting about him. And he says it's in the iconic market, which is part of the tourism strategy there. And it's one of the best delis. And it's focused, obviously its key product is on cheese, right? And then these titles that Google My Business have picked up are the titles from his navigation. So he's used his navigation really well. Shops and platters, food deli, grazing platter. You've got an idea of what the business does. He could do a bit better with dairy, but I won't criticize him because I haven't got a better option at this particular time. And then he's made good use of the about content by making sure that on the about page, there's an image, it's at the top of the page, and it's well indexed, so Google's read it, right? It's got a couple of little flags in here for the tourist, and he's also got the fact that he's got a snack pack. So if you're a tourist to the market and you're looking for lunch, right, why not come to Bill's Deli? He's also got, why not come to Bill's Deli? Because Bill's farm does things like platters. They obviously service businesses. Businesses that serve businesses are often really high quality. So it's a kind of good proxy. So his website has got great titles. It's got great good engineering, and it's got a well-indexed photo. So the second half of the Google My Business result comes out really well for him. It really makes him look good. In the third part, he's got Facebook, right? He's filled out his Facebook properly. He's got a different picture, shows the location of the business. He's got great reviews. He's got a price point, mid-price. So you're not going to get the cheapest of the cheap, which is good. He's got a good price point. And he's got a description here, which is about trust. We've been in business for 28 years, and they're constantly sourcing the best products from around Australia. So if you're an international guest, or you're a bit of a foodie, or you're concerned about food miles, he's a person to go to. He's been there 28 years. The product's local, and and they're constantly updating it. It's well reviewed, and I know my price point, and I can see what the stand looks like. Next is his QVM result. The only thing, we've got the proprietor. Everyone loves to see a picture of the proprietor. Again, we've got a good description, and that's because QVM lists really well. Some people, the name of the store or the business is not the same as their QVM listing. Make sure it is the same, right? So if you call your business stand something else, but you're registered under Serato Pty, and you're on QVM under Serato, it's going to say there's going to be a contradiction there. Get it ironed out. So the only thing that mistake that I could pick is he says almost 30 years here and 28 years here. That looks like a bit of a contradiction, but it's not actually in reality. So again, he's got a bit of a story. And the other links down here really tell you that he's got another service and that he's more established enough to be reviewed in other documents. So he's got third-party links. So all in all, his experience on Google My Business is excellent. Do I like it? Yeah, I can't fail to find it. I'll just check. It does all these things. I've got a really clear idea about what the product is. The trust factors look really good. Oh, look, he's got great Facebook reviews. He's on the web, the market site, and he's got other links. Okay, so That's called doing a good job. If you look at your own Google result, it needs to be as good as Bill's. If it's good or close, then you're doing an excellent job, right? Because people can find you. And that's what I meant by, when I mentioned briefly, have a look at your Google My Business and see if it's up to date. What I want you to do is look at your Google My Business, compare it to Bill's Farm, and say, are we in the same league? Because if you were looking for a deli, you don't have any reason not to go to Bill's Farm. If you can't remember the name of the deli, it's got a website, it's got a phone number, it's got all the reasons to contact him, and he's all over the search results. If you can't get Google My Business because you've got a different kind of phone, he'll turn up in the results. So that's really what I was looking for: consistency, clarity, ease of communication, and a well-supported brand. So in terms of getting more out of the QVM site, I showed Google My Business first because it showed that QVM's website is liked by Google, and it was listed second in after his own website in the results. Quite a lot of market trader sites that I've looked at, the QVM site lists way ahead of their own website. So it's worth putting effort into your QVM site. One, again, it's free, but it indexes really well in Google. So it's worth doing. Now we looked at Bill's Farm. So what I might do is just go to, it's going to want me to do it in a new tab. I'll just go and look at Bruce Goose. Now, is it going to let me open it? I don't want to do it in a new tab. Yep. Okay, so just let me know if you can still see the screen, because I've gone to a separate screen. So is it coming up okay?
Yes, it's coming up fine.
Okay. So what do I like about Bruce Goose? What I like about Bruce Goose is he's made use of the slider. Okay, so there's multiple images. First of all, what does he look like? He's got an image of the proprietor. Everyone loves an image of a proprietor. Even if you don't feel photogenic, I don't care. I want to see you on there. You own the business, right? When people are walking around, people have got an incredible memory for faces that they know or don't know about, right? And if they can see the proprietor, they'll recognize they're at the right stand. So he's got color and movement because he's used the slider. He's also put his logo up, and obviously previous to the new market rules, his logo was quite prominently displayed, and he needs a new solution for that now so that people can see it in traffic. Okay. The other thing he's done is he's made use of the Australian made logo, which he's done, and he's also put it in his photos. When someone comes to the market, they're looking for a genuinely Australian experience. They want to buy an Australian product if possible, and if possible, they want to buy something that's made in Australia. So he's getting trust factors or second-party brand leverage because he's filled out the Australian made application, and his product is made in Australia. So he's doing he's making best use of his facilities. So if you're an international student, you can think, oh, there's an Asian-looking guy. I wonder if all his products are imported from Asia. It's easy to make those kind of assumptions just based on how people look. He's getting around that challenge by the fact that he's saying this is an Australian-made, designed, and manufactured product. Okay, so you can buy it from me knowing you're buying a genuinely Australian product. Obviously, he's got his address in, he's got his website in, he's got his phone number in, he's got his email address in, he's got his Facebook in, and he's got his Instagram in, and it's all really, really well, tightly put in there in terms of it. He's used the business name well each time. He's told a bit of a story, which again we really like. Locally made, locally designed, locally manufactured, and he's got a video in. Right? There's nothing to stop you not putting a video in there, right? It makes it stand out from some of the other suppliers. There's plenty of people who sell clothing, footwear, and socks, and novelty things like that, right? But his is just better, right? He's made really, really, really good use of the product in terms of color and movement, telling a personal story, when he's open, how to contact him, and I'll just try and mute that. That's his website. So it won't let me turn it off.
Click on the video.
Yeah. Thank you. I was trying to get back to the screen to show the other site, but it's not letting me do that. Okay, so that is a really good example from my point of view of a great application of the of oh sorry, not application, a great use of a free QVM site that comes up really well in Google that helps you with your search marketing. So now the other person that I was going to look at that was on my list here, I had the hat project, which I talked about before. Let me just go back to it. Okay. Come on. So I've just got to move my screen around because I've muted that thing. So in terms of continuous improvement, the reason I wanted to mention this one is that, first of all, I think that Jenny's done a really good job on this, right? But actually, no matter how often you look at things, there's always ways in which you can find to improve something. And I had an interesting discussion with Madalen about that when we were talking about planning the project, right? So in terms of the hat project, you know, we've got lots of great product. We've made use of color and movement. We've got the slider. That's been done. And, you know, and Jenny's put a lot of great effort in. She's branded up with the current logo, some of the images, which is really good, right? See that picture of the proprietor, again, everyone loves to see who the person is. And she's done the same thing. Instagram, Facebook, phone number, email, told a story. She's also put in the fact that she's got the awards. So I chose Bruce Goose because he's using the Made in Australia logo for his third-party trust factors, right? Jenny's put in here the fact that she's won an award from the City of Melbourne. Okay, so that tells the customer that she's a trustworthy person and that she's been successful, and the proxy is that you'll probably have a quality experience and she's got quality project. She's got quality, produce. She's hyperlinked through, which is good for her SEO. Back to the website. She also does online and home delivery, and she's got her hours specifically put in here. What we noticed was when we were talking was this challenge here. So Jenny's got two sites, right? The first site is this Victoria Street shop, and every other day she can be in one of two different places. So this isn't clear. It's confusing. And we thought one of the things that we need to do next time we speak to Jenny is work out how to separate this result here, which is every day and is on Victoria Street, from the information that's up here. So although Jenny's done a couple of RMIT student projects and she's worked really hard on the site, and I've looked at this, a couple of times over the last few years, and so is Madalen, is it's always possible to do a better job, right? And, so here we've identified a small challenge, but if the person can't find them, then they won't buy the product. If that's too difficult to understand, they're going to walk in and see someone else in the market, right? So we want them to put in their Victoria Street shop, the hat project, into their phone and follow the directions. We want them to be really, really specific. So
one of the other things that we had a look at as well that could be improved is including a link to the web page, which is sort of like, when she's talking about a product like fedoras or Panamas or trilbies, she could link trilbies to the actual collection page on the website.
And that's a great reminder, Madalen. Thank you for that. That was what we were just talking about. That so she's got collection pages because she uses Shopify, and category pages, and she's also got brands. So these links here in her collections, right? When she talks about men's hats and women's hats, she could link to her collection of men's and women's hats, right? That's great SEO because they're keywords, and Google will read them, follow the keyword link, they land on their page with the same thing. If she wants to, she could link to the styles here because she's got pages about the styles, and she's also got pages about brands. So that's a classic small piece of SEO done on a third-party site for free, which would really help her rankings, right? Structured links from one site to another site, a high credibility site with the same phraseology on both pages. Thanks, Madalen. That's a really great reminder.
Okay.
So I don't really think we need to cover Bill's Farm again, right? Because I'm only going to say the same things, which is he's done a great job with the logo. He's got colour and movement. It's impossible not to find him. He's told a story, and he's got his hours up there, and his location in the market is really clear. And obviously for Jenny, though, her location is Queen Victoria Street Shops, which is that one. But then all these other times, she's in here somewhere. So we need to think about that. You know, we need to just have a chat and go, what's the best way that we can do that? And, you know, it might be just bolding something or putting some more white space in there, or putting a line in there to say, come to one of our visit one of our, 2 locations in the market. Just a simple statement. Anyway, we can make it better is what I'm trying to say. So when I said go through your QVM site and make sure that you're getting the best out of this site, it's free. They do a great job at QVM in terms of its SEO and its promotion. Google likes it. It supports your My Business link when it turns up, and it will help you get traffic and all customers to your shop. And if you link to it every now and again, you're also giving back to QVM by helping them. So when I whizzed through your homework for last week, this is really what I was talking about. I didn't take enough time to say what is good or what you might think about changing. So that really is just a bit of catch up from last week on what we talked about in week 1. So in terms of action items, I guess what I'd like you to do is go away and find out what the hashtags are that are relevant to your business, and also start to use the hashtags that will support your business based on the marketing that has been done by QVM, City of Melbourne, Tourism Vic. Right? If you're at all consider yourself to be a tourist destination, you should have a tourism hashtag in every post. If you want to support the QVM, you should use Queen Vic Market or QVM in every post, because that's the destination, that's the brand, and that's the location that we want. And then you should be looking at an activity or a piece of content or a bit of product. And if you're going to do that, just simply go to one of the 2 free hashtag searches and experiment and see which hashtags are going to work for you. So I guess from a digital marketing point of view, we tend to give the client a suite of hashtags. So I've just done work on an expo for diving, which is coming up in Melbourne later this year, and I've worked with them to produce a portfolio of hashtags for her marketing team, which is based in Port Macquarie to use. So she does a dive show a year about. One year it's in Sydney, one year it's in Melbourne, and obviously they're trying to bounce back from COVID, and a fair bit has changed. And one of the key things that's changed about the diving industry is it's become very much an Instagram industry. So whereas before that wasn't really a thing. You've got technical divers, and they're not interested in show ponies. They're interested in rebreather apparatus and complex technology in cave diving. But all of the new customers, all of the new clients, and the recreational clients who spend money at expos and on those kind of products are all basically using Instagram. So in order for her to bring her marketing up to date, we went and developed a whole series of Instagram hashtags for her so that she could target in the free divers and the people who are doing this kind of recreational and amazing cave diving. They're producing phenomenal pictures, but how do you get to that demographic and that market so that she's just not getting 45-year-old guys who've got lots of money to spend on kit who are really, really, really technically focused. So your business will have a portfolio of hashtags. It's worth knowing what they are. And if you have any third-party marketing done by any contractors or agencies, it's worth giving them your portfolio of hashtags and getting them to update it. So yeah, that's me for this week, and thank you very much. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Oh, Peter, this is once again some great tips, and particularly the use of hashtags, using the, as a strategy with the destination, with the product, and with the other tags like, the brand or the proprietor. So, it's they're all very valuable in using in your promotions. Also, I thought the demographic and business type was really good, as if you're targeting mums, or if you're targeting the kids. So those hashtags that were directly related to those were very powerful, I think. Just for that tiny little bit that each one of us can do, riding on QVM coattails, it shows that we actually have the power to bring traffic back to the market, but we all have to work together in doing that.
Yeah, I think all of the thing with hashtags is they're not going to solve anything. They're not going to make you a fortune. They're all one percenters. And it's those little things like putting alt tags in your images. It's the little things like having using a full sentence and not a phrase when you write your copy. It's all the small stuff that actually adds up in total to bigger things. So yeah, sure, you can do a post without a demographic, but it's better if you do one. Sure, you can do a post without QVM, but why would you? That's the destination. So why not leverage the $10 million that are going to be spent on destination marketing this year in Melbourne? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, so on that note, I'll stop the recording now, and thank you very much, Peter. Absolutely great information in there, and look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you, Madalen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Email me if you need some help or you want some clarification.